Hello everyone. Today we are going to see about insolvency and bankruptcy code. Let us understand what is the difference between the terms insolvency and bankruptcy. Insolvency is a state of economic distress, whereas the bankruptcy is a court order that decides how an insolvent debtor will deal with unpaid obligations. The insolvency laws have been divided into two big categories. They are individual insolvency and corporate insolvency. Earlier, the individual insolvency was governed by two important acts, namely Presidency Towns Insolvency Act 1909 and the Provincial Insolvency Act 1920. Now, those two legislations have been replaced by Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016. Earlier, the jurisdiction to deal with insolvency laws are given only to district courts and high courts. Now, debt recovery tribunals and NCLT have been given jurisdiction to deal with insolvency and bankruptcy matters. When we say corporate insolvency, we can divide it into two: corporate insolvency and resolution process, and then liquidation process. Earlier, we had winding up of companies, which was governed by Companies Act 1956, and Sikh Industrial Companies Special Provisions Act 1985. We used to file winding up applications before district courts and high courts, and the Sikh industrial companies were given privileges and benefits. Rehabilitation of Sikh industrial companies were done by BIFR. Now, the BIFR has been abolished by the Repeal Act. The SICA, the Sikh Industrial Companies Act, has been repealed by a Repeal Act. Now, the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code and also the Companies Act 2016 have been given effect to. They have commenced in the year 2016. After the commencement of Companies Act 2013 and Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, national company law tribunals were established, and it has become the only courts to deal with company matters. However, the preamble of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code reads as an act to consolidate and amend the laws relating to reorganization and insolvency resolution of corporate persons, partnership firms, and individuals in a time bound manner for maximization of value of assets of such persons, to promote entrepreneurship, availability of credit, and balance the interest of all the stakeholders, including alteration in the order of priority of payment of government dues, and to establish an Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India, and for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. From this, we we can easily identify the object of IBC is to consolidate and amend various laws. They were separate laws which we were not able to follow simultaneously. So, this is one single legislation which is consolidating various laws existing earlier, and the process of insolvency and bankruptcy has been brought in a time bound manner. Time bound manner is the essence of insolvency and bankruptcy code. Now, the the process has been reduced to a vast extent. Now, the process of insolvency and also uh, reconstruction and reorganization of companies has been reduced to a certain extent. They have fixed time limit for each and every steps in the involved in the organization, reorganization and insolvency resolution of corporate persons, partnership, even individuals. The framework of the IBC is like this. There is a regulator, the board, that is Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. This is the topmost board which is acting as a regulator of the entire framework. IBBI is a board which is created by a statute, and uh, there are a few service providers which are established under the IBBI. They are insolvency professional agencies, insolvency professionals, informational utilities, registered valuers, and registered valuer associations. And when we see adjudicators, the adjudicating authority under the IBC are two, two, two different adjudicating authorities. One is National Company Law Tribunal, that is only meant for company entities, corporate entities, that is companies and LLPs. LLPs means limited liability partnerships. And then DRT, debt recovery tribunals, are adjudicating authority for non-corporate entities. Non-corporate entities includes natural persons, that is individuals, and partnership firms. Even the sole proprietorship concerns are considered as individuals only. They are also governed under the non-corporate entities, and they are considered as non-corporate entities, and the jurisdiction for sole proprietorship concern is also DRT only. Let us see the service providers and their role one by one. There are around 6 service providers under IBBI. First is insolvency professionals. Insolvency professional is a person enrolled with IPA as its member, registered with IBBA as IP. Who is IPA? IPA is Insolvency Professional Agency. Uh, they are companies registered with a board under section 201 of the code. And then IPA is the major role of IPA is to provide development programs to the professionals, that is IPs, and to develop and maintain the code of ethics, and they are the first level regulator for the IP members. Then, information utilities. Information utilities are organizations wherein the financial informations are being filed, authenticated, and stored, which even the information utilities are giving access to the information stored with them to the parties concerned and for the uh, adjudicating authorities and also for um, insolvency professionals. Then, insolvency professional entities. The insolvency professional can practice independently and also with entities like a partnership firms. In the partnership firms or even a company, uh, only the insolvency professionals should be directors, and they should not be there should not be non IPs, non insolvency professionals. uh, they should practice as insolvency professionals. They can handle big projects, complex projects, uh, and this will help to solve practical difficulties involved in such projects. Then, registered valuer organizations. This organization is registered with IBBI, and then these organizations will develop professional standards, code of ethics for the registered valuers, and this organization is the first level regulator for registered valuers. Then comes the registered valuers. They are appointed once the insolvency professional is appointed in the uh, resolution process. He is supposed to engage two valuers, registered valuers. The registered valuers must have the specified qualifications, and he should have passed the register valuer examination under the IBBI as stipulated in the IBBI. Uh, Registered valuer is a valuer member of a registered valuer organization and a person who has passed the valuation exam. Who is eligible to become an insolvency professional? Here we are seeing the qualification set for insolvency professional. Earlier we had national insolvency examination. Now that has been removed. This examination is not being conducted, so uh, this criteria is not there. Passing of limited insolvency examination is the main criteria for insolvency professional. Who is eligible to attend this exam is 10 years experience, a person with a 10 years experience as a chartered accountant or a company secretary or a cost accountant or an advocate holding 10 years experience. And then any person with 15 years experience in management. Mostly we can see bank managers or bank staff with 10 years experience and also passed in limited insolvency examination. Otherwise, any person holding bachelor degree plus 15 years experience in the management. We can see they are eligible to become insolvency professional. And a temporary limited period registration was given. Now the time period is over. Earlier we had the 15 years experience chartered accountant or a company secretary or a cost accountant or a advocate without passing limited insolvency examination. They could be acting as insolvency professional for a temporary period, for a limited period, only for 6 months. And within the 6 months, if they have completed the limited insolvency examination, they can continue to practice as insolvency professionals. But without examination, now they are not allowed. Who is eligible to become registered valuer? IBC is providing registered valuers qualification as per the valuation rules. uh, Passing of valuation examination conducted by IBBI is the most important criteria. Who is uh, eligible to attend this valuation exam? Any postgraduate or a postgraduate in diploma with 3 years of experience in specified discipline, or having a bachelor degree or equivalent diploma with 5 years experience in specified discipline can become a registered valuer. uh, Here we are going to see the adjudicating authorities. There are two different adjudicating authorities. First one is NCLT. NCLT is for corporate companies and limited liability partnership, and appeals from NCLT will be preferred before NCLAT, that National Company Law Appellate Tribunal, which is in Delhi, and appeal from NCLAT will be preferred to Supreme Court. So Supreme Court is the highest authority in the framework. And then the DRT. DRT is handling all insolvency and bankruptcy matters with related to partnership firms, individual sole proprietorship concern. And appeal from DRT will be filed before appellate authority, that is DRAT. DRAT, from DRAT, appeal will be preferred to Supreme Court, and here also Supreme Court is the highest authority. There is, if we see in the frame, we cannot find any high court or district court. Civil court has power to entertain IBC matters. Only NCLT, NCLAT and Supreme Court. However, by challenging the right violated, any fundamental right is violated under the Constitution, then High Court can entertain the writ jurisdiction. Under the writ jurisdiction, Article 226, even the High Courts can entertain the matters only where the fundamental rights of any person is violated. The major parts of IBC, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, has two different parts. One is corporate insolvency, other one is bankruptcy. And corporate insolvency has been divided into two: corporate insolvency resolution process and liquidation, and then value voluntary liquidation. uh, this is like companies without without undergoing corporate insolvency, they can directly go into voluntary liquidation also. Then comes bankruptcy is meant for individuals and partnership firms. The key steps of IBC. Normally, the procedure of insolvency is like this only. Uh, Whatever may be, like whoever may be the party, corporate insolvency or individual insolvency, the steps are uniform like this. Initiation by creditor or debtor, filing of application with NCLT, then appointment of interim IP, then constitution of creditor committee, then resolution of and approval of plan. In case of rejection, liquidation stage will come, then distribution of assets. So this is how the steps, the procedures are followed. Let us understand few terminologies used in the IBC. CD, we say CD, that is corporate debtor. The corporate debtor who owes money to the creditors. That company which is undergoing the insolvency is called corporate debtor. Then OC. OC is operational creditor. OC stands for operational creditor. Operational creditor is a person who supplies goods or provided with services to the corporate debtor, who is providing services to the corporate debtor. Then financial creditor, FC. FC stands for financial creditor. Financial creditor is a person who lends financial assistance to the corporate debtor. It can be a bank or a non-banking financial institution also. And then committee of creditors, we normally say COC. COC is the committee of creditors which is constituted by the insolvency professional after his appointment. Then corporate insolvency resolution process. The highlight of IBC is CIRP. That is, before IBC, we did not have CIRP. One opportunity to revive the company. If a company is not doing good, if a company is financially doing bad, the company can restructure itself or reorganize itself to become a good running company. This opportunity was not given earlier. It was given under Companies Act, but it was acting as a different legislation, and insolvency was a different procedure. Now, before the company is being liquidated, before going for winding up, one golden opportunity is given for the company to revive its to reconstituted itself to correct its mistakes so that the companies can act. If a company is running well, all the dependent families, even the whole society will be happy. So, this is a best golden opportunity which is being given to corporate entities. So, let us see the steps. Once the payment, if the default is committed in the payment, a corporate a creditor sends a demand notice to the debtor. Debtor responds to it. Then, whether the debtor is responding or not, creditor will file application before the NCLT. Insolvency resolution is requested. NCLT is appointing insolvency professional as IRP. Then COC is appointed. COC is constituted. COC means Committee of Creditors. Committee of Creditors mostly constituted by the parties from financial creditors. Only if there is no financial creditors, then operational creditors can form part of it. Information utility is gathering all the information from the financial creditors, and it can be accessed from the financial institution banks. The information can be gathered and stored in the information utility, which is accessed for the resolution. Then insolvency plan is formulated. Then NCLT sees the plan. COC votes on the plan. Once COC is voting, NCLT has to approve it. Step 1, filing a CIRP petition before NCLT, and then acceptance of CIRP petition by the NCLT. Once it is accepted, insolvency professional is appointed. Interim moratorium period begins. Moratorium is nothing but stay. So, no other petition, no other case can be filed with respect to this default, this amount. Then IRP constitutes the COC. Then appointment of RP. So the COC after constituted, the COC has the power to appoint RP, resolution professional. The same IRP, that is interim resolution professional, can be appointed as resolution professional throughout the CIRP period, or the COC can change the insolvency professional also. So the RP, the same IRP can act as RP with the approval of COC, or a new person can be appointed as RP. And then resolution plan is prepared, and it has to be accepted by the COC by voting, for majority voting. Once it is accepted, then the RP submits it before the NCLT. The NCLT may either approve the plan or reject the plan. In case the resolution plan is accepted, approved by the NCLT, then it will be executed. Otherwise, if the NCLT rejects the resolution plan, then the company will go to liquidation. A liquidation order will be passed. What is the liquidation process? Liquidation process. If insolvency resolution is failed, then liquidation order is passed. In the same order, liquidator is appointed. Mostly the same RP will be appointed as liquidator. Otherwise, a new insolvency professional will be appointed as liquidator by the NCLT. Liquidator makes public announcement, then he receives the claims, then submission of preliminary report, then he creation of progress report. That liquidator is supposed to submit the progress report every once in a quarter. Then submission of final report. Then finally the company will be dissolved. Dissolution order will be passed. And there is one more process called voluntary liquidation. Voluntary liquidation need not undergo the process of CIRP or liquidation. This voluntary liquidation is once the company decides to undergo the voluntary, to close the company, to dissolve the company voluntarily, they have to follow the procedures. Declaration from majority of directors of the company. The majority of the directors should declare that there is no debts, there is no default committed, and even if there is any debt, the company has resources to pay off the debts. Then within 4 weeks of a declaration, a special resolution of the members of company in general meeting. So general meeting, general body meeting has to be convened, and a special resolution has to be obtained. Then in the special resolution, in the meeting, appointment of liquidator will be approved by the members. Then company notifies the ROC. Company has to notify to registrar of companies and IBBI about the resolution to liquidate the company within 7 days of such resolution. So they have to notify within 7 days. Creditors representing 2/3 in value of the debts of company shall approve the resolution within 7 days. The creditors have to approve. Once the creditors are approving, then voluntary liquidation process proceedings in respect of a company shall be deemed to have commenced from the date of passing the resolution. After the affairs of corporate person have been completely wound up, liquidator makes application to the adjudicating authority. So till this stage, no application will be presented before the NCLT. It is only by the company by itself winding up by itself. And now the application will be submitted to the adjudicating authority, that is NCLT. The adjudicating authority passes order of dissolution of company. Once the NCLT passes dissolution order, then the company doesn't exist. It ceases to be existing. That's all. The threshold limit and fee structure. So if an application is filed by financial creditor under section 7, the application fee is 25,000. Application is filed by operational creditor who is supplying goods and services. If they have any outstanding money borrowed by the corporate debtor, then they can initiate under section 9 and the fee is only 2000 rupees. Then application by the corporate applicant, even the corporate applicant himself itself can file an application under section 10 for CIRP, that is corporate insolvency resolution process. For that the fee is 25,000. The minimum threshold limit, if the default is at least 1 crore, then only we can file application before NCLT under IBC to initiate the insolvency proceedings. And this minimum default amount, the threshold amount, earlier was 1 lakh only. It was enhanced only on 23rd March 2020 due to the pandemic of the coronavirus. Threshold limit under IBC enhanced to 1 crore rupees from 1 lakh amidst coronavirus crisis. Till 23rd, no, it was actually notification was issued only on 24th. So till 23rd March, it was only 1 lakh rupees. So the default, if it is 1 lakh, they can approach the NCLT. But now, if the default is 1 crore, then only we can approach the NCLT. The recent amendments on account of COVID-19. This is very important, very crucial to be learned, to be understood. This amendment, as we already saw, section 4 of IBC was amended. The threshold limit to initiate proceedings under IBC stands enhanced from 1 lakh rupees to 1 crore. That is the basic pecuniary jurisdiction of the NCLT. It was amended. Then the main amendment due to this COVID-19, the corona crisis, COVID-19 crisis, was a new section, that is section 10A was inserted by amending sections 7, 9 and 10 of IBC. That is, to the effect, no application to initiate CIRP shall be filed for any default arising from 25th March 2020 for a period of 6 months or such further period not exceeding 12 months from such date. So, if there is any default between this suspended period, insolvency proceedings cannot be initiated. So this is a privilege for the companies, for those who are already suffering in the pandemic. They need not suffer by litigation proceedings. So it's a privilege given by the government to the corporate debtors. Then the stages of individual insolvency. Individual insolvency, we have three stages: fresh start, individual insolvency, and bankruptcy. Fresh start is a process added by the IBC. Who is eligible to file a fresh start application? Any person whose gross annual income of debtor does not exceed 60,000, aggregate value of assets of debtor does not exceed 20,000 rupees, aggregate value of qualifying debts does not exceed 35,000 rupees, and the debtor is not an undischarged bankrupt, and he is not owning dwelling unit, irrespective of whether it is encumbered or not. He should not be having a dwelling unit. A fresh start process, insolvency resolution process, or bankruptcy process is not subsisting against him. No previous fresh start, fresh start, fresh start order of the proceeding, 12 months of the application for fresh start. And how the fresh start process go. Application for fresh start to be made to adjudicating authority, appointment or confirmation of resolution professional, examination of application by resolution professional, admission of application by adjudicating authority, objections by the creditors and their examination by resolution professional, then finally discharge order. Once the discharge order is given, no other creditors can file any proceeding against the debtor with respect to the qualifying debt. Then individual insolvency process. The application is filed by the creditors to initiate the insolvency resolution process. Then interim moratorium is declared. Then appointment of resolution process. Resolution process is professional is appointed. Then resolution professional is submitting a report to the DRT, to the adjudicating authority. Then admission or rejection of application. If the application is admitted, moratorium is ordered. If the application is rejected, then bankruptcy proceedings will start. Then after the admission, public notice is issued by the RP. Then claims from the creditors are received. Then preparation of list of creditors, repayment plan by debtor, then report of resolution professional on repayment plan, summoning and meeting of creditors, report of meeting of creditors to be submitted by the resolution professional to the adjudicating authority. Then adjudicating authority orders the repayment plan. Then repayment plan is implemented and supervised. Finally, discharge order is passed by the adjudicating authority. Then individual bankruptcy. Individual bankruptcy. When this individual bankruptcy is application is filed, where discharge application is rejected by the adjudicating authority on the basis of report submitted by the resolution professional, bankruptcy can be initiated. Where adjudicating authority rejects the repayment plan, creditors can file application for bankruptcy. Where an order has been passed by an adjudicating authority under section 118(3), then bankruptcy proceeding can be initiated against the debtor. A resolution professional submits a report that the repayment plan has not been completely implemented. Finally, insolvency, bankruptcy proceeding will be initiated. Steps in bankruptcy proceedings. The same steps like corporate bankruptcy, corporate liquidation, but here discharge order will be passed. Then bankrupt shall be disqualified. Let us understand who is a bankrupt. Bankrupt is a person who is adjudged as bankrupt by the court. A bankrupt is disqualified from being appointed or acting as a trustee or a representative in respect of any trust or estate or settlement, or he is disqualified being appointed or acting as a public servant. Bankrupt is disqualified being elected to any public office where the appointment of such office is by election. Bankrupt is disqualified being elected or sitting or voting as a member of a local authority. So, hope nobody should become bankrupt. Successful investment is about managing risk, not avoiding it. Reduce financial risk. Cut the unnecessary cost. Thank you. This is Santana Lakshmi, advocate and insolvency professional from We Solve Intellexis, Chennai.